What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. We have a new video for you today that has to do with my 2022 GR86. If you guys saw my last video, you guys know that I've been working on the BRZ, getting the engine out and basically taking everything I can out to prep for the engine to come out. But in my last video, I basically took out the radiator, AC condenser, bumper, and basically a lot of other front parts that we had here, so that when I do take the engine out, I can kind of slide it forward and it will prevent a bunch of scratching and headaches. So while we continue to work on this, I did want to take a break, a step back, and work on the GR86 as we are getting ready for our first track day of the season. What we got today is a Accusump system. So if you guys know what an Accusump is, or if you guys don't know what an Accusump is, it's basically an oil reservoir, a canister that can hold up to 2 quarts of oil, and basically we install it into the engine and it'll drop oil whenever the engine pressure on the car itself is too low. This thing will activate and it'll drop 2 more quarts of oil in the block so that we don't starve the pickup and the engine doesn't not get lubricated correctly. If you guys don't know how the Accusump system works, basically there is kind of a divider in the middle, and on this side we have air pressure, on this side we would have oil within the canister. And basically what Canton Design recommends is about 15 psi of pressure of air within this canister. I think anywhere from 5 to 15 is okay. We're going to run 15 psi of air pressure in here, just because the higher the pressure, the faster the oil can go into the engine block. And how this works is this side has air, this side has oil. When the pressure within the air side of this system is higher than the pressure of the oil in the engine block itself, then the divider will basically push the oil into the engine. And so basically it overfills the engine for a couple seconds. Once the pressure comes back up, then it works the reverse. The oil will refill into this canister, and then the air will basically be pressurized and ready for the next time the engine gets really low on oil pressure. So I ordered all of this from Ansix Auto. You can order the canister, the mounts for the canister, the valve that you decide you want to run, and the switch. I personally got an electronic valve, so this thing will turn on or off based on electric current that I set to it. And I got my own little switch here because I didn't really like the one that it came with. So we're going to be wiring that stuff in, as well as some wiring loom that I got for sealing everything, because it is oil. I got this what's called Blue Monster Teflon tape. It's basically what the internet recommends for anything having to do with sealing oil within a car or whatever. So I got that stuff. It's kind of bluish. It's not your typical white Teflon tape that you would use, and apparently it works really well. So we do have to seal a couple things, so whatever goes in here, so this ring right here has to be sealed, the other side has to be sealed to go into the valve, the electronic valve, and I believe these AM lines have to be sealed up too. So this AN line is going to go on the other side of this, and then it's going to go into the engine block from this side into this little oil galley plug that we have here. Typically people will put a oil pressure gauge or oil pressure sensor right here, but the nice thing about this electronic valve is it comes with a little block, and you can actually, or a block off screw or whatever the fuck it's called, and you can put an oil pressure gauge right in here. I reached out to Ansix just to see if there might be a difference within oil pressure, since it's not actually on the block and it's on a valve that's separate from the block, and they said it should be fine. If there is any difference, it would be 1 or 2 psi maybe at most, which isn't that big of a deal, especially when you're looking between 20, 30, 40, 50 psi. It's not that huge of a deal, so I don't really mind it. I don't think I'm bothered by it. So in preparation for this video, I kind of waited until the oil was needing an oil change before I installed that, because I wanted fresh oil within the system. So we are at our next oil change service, so I am going to be doing an oil change on this car before we install all that stuff. And basically what I got is Motul 300V, full synthetic racing motor oil. And I'm switching from OW20 to 5W30 because, you know, thicker oil is going to be able to lubricate the engine a little bit better. A lot of people that track their cars recommend either running 530 or 540 because the O20, once it gets really hot, it gets really thin and it doesn't lubricate that well. So yeah, we're gonna be running this. I got 2 because of the 2 quarts extra that we're gonna be having to put in here. And then I got a OEM Subaru oil filter, which is gonna be replacing the K&N one because every time I do an oil change, I just like to replace the filter also. It might be overkill, but I don't really care. It's, you know, 15 bucks, so. Yeah, so we're gonna be doing that. I also wanted to show you some tools that I got. So I went to Home Depot and I got this wire stripper, super fun to play with. And I got a new little wire cutter because the one that I had before, I fucked up because I used it on metal and I basically fucked up the tooth or the teeth or whatever, the sandwich in there. I got a new drill bit to drill the spot for this switch. And I also got this really cool Husky light tripod stand thing so that we can illuminate the engine bay when we're doing work on it. And also because I noticed in other videos, especially the BRZ one, when you get down here, you can't really see much. It's just the lighting in this garage, but this is gonna be super cool and it's gonna help us kind of make sure that the lighting is right in all areas that I'm working on and you guys can actually see what I'm doing. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm gonna do the oil change first, so let's get working on that. Once I got the oil change, then I'll install the actual canister, you know, make sure that I plumb it up to the engine correctly. And then after that, I'll do the wiring on the inside for the on-off switch. So let's start getting that done. change is done. Alright, so now that we got the oil changed, it's time to install this Accusump. We just move this oil filter. Alright, so I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install these kind of loosely. And they're both labeled on the inside, if you can see that. So we got left and we got right, and then there's an arrow to show you which side is up. So we're going to install these first. We're just going to put them on the bars, those black bars right there. And then we will move on to installing this guy. So when we do install this guy, it is going to be upside down. The Accusump logo is going to be upside down, and this is going to be on the passenger side, just so you know. And it also marks where you're supposed to put those clips. So these right here are going to be right on the orange things, because there's like a little piston or a little divider that moves in here. If you tighten in here where the divider kind of runs through, then you have the possibility of putting too much pressure and the divider not being able to move correctly. So that's why they're right at the edges of the Accusump. So let's go ahead and put those clips in, and then, or put these brackets in, and then we'll put this Accusump in. Messing with this for the longest, adjusting it, following Ansix's directions, and every time that I moved it, it would just touch this right here, which is I think it's a vacuum hose, or metal vacuum, whatever, but you'll see that there's a line right here, and it's in the way. And I looked at Ansix's website with their mounting kit, and in theirs, they don't run the engine cover, and they don't run these brackets, including this bracket that holds this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these brackets out, and if you want to run like this, or if you have a fancy HKS one or whatever, like carbon fiber cover, just know that you probably won't be able to run this. I personally don't care, because, you know, this is just a track car. So I don't really care about the fancy shit. So I'm going to take all this bracketry out. This should be able to like freely kind of hang here, and I'll just push it kind of down. And then we should be able to have this installed. So let me just take these out really quick, and then we'll continue on. Accusump is in. As per the instructions from Ansix, first we're going to remove this elbow here of the intake so that we can get to the oil galley plug, and we're going to remove that first. That's just how their instruction goes, so I'm just going to go ahead and follow what they say. So get pliers, take this out, take this out, take this out, take this whole elbow out, and then we have more access to that. So let me get to doing that. Tape on it. Okay, so once you remove the oil galley plug, on one side of this AN fitting, there is an adapter with a washer here. So we're going to remove this from the line, and we're going to install this into the engine. Okay, so it doesn't say to use Teflon tape in the instructions. So I am not gonna use Teflon tape on this piece because, I mean, there is a crush washer, which I'm assuming is meant to sandwich in between the two to prevent leaks. So now we get to remove the pressure relief valve from the Accusump. So when they send it to you from Canton, it's kind of loose. So we should be able to just unscrew it and then it comes out. We'll put that aside for now. Next is installing this guy into the Accusump. So to do that, we have to take this little cap off. We're gonna put some Teflon tape on that bitch. All right, Teflon with the blue stuff. And then we're gonna install this right into the Accusump. That's pretty fucking tight. We're gonna install this right here, which is the electronic valve. There's a side, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a side that's slightly marked with like an in. I think you can see that. So inside is the side that'll go into the Accusump. And then this side is the side that'll go out. And then this, we're gonna tighten this, but later on we're gonna install an oil pressure gauge here. So we may have to loosen this clamp, maybe loosen both clamps honestly, and then install this and then put it back in there. So, because if not, I'm not gonna be able to turn it around in there. So let me go ahead and take it out and then I'll show you guys how I install the valve. All right, boys, so what I'm gonna do is, got my Accusump here, Teflon tape the edge of it, or at the end of this side a few times. And then we want this thing, so if the Accusump is facing this way, we want it to face this way. So I'm gonna try my best to make sure I'm screwing it in. that it stays upright like that. It's already getting tight. So Accusump logo is going to be facing this way, and that seems like it's going to be a little too up. Possibly not. Perfect. So let's try to reinstall this in the car. Okay, this took a lot of figuring out, and if you didn't notice, my light died because I just got it and I didn't charge it. But so what I ended up doing was I unscrewed this one more time, re-Teflon taped it, and re-screwed it angling downward. So the plug that comes with this valve, what I did is I faced it downward, and then when I'm ready to put in the gauge and the sensor's going to be mounted this way and going downward. It's the only way I could get it to fit without it touching the hood. And yeah, so this is how I'm going to angle it. It does touch this AC line, but because it's an AC line, I don't think there will be like problems, honestly. If there are, I will update this with a new video, but honestly, I think this is the best way to mount it. These wires can go straight to like the firewall plug that's over there, and right into the car. So I think this is the spot it's gonna live in. So yeah, we'll move on to the next step, which is adding in the AN line into the oil galley, and then it's just wiring into the car. With this AN line, there is obviously two sides. There's this side, which is a straight, and then there's this side that has a little angle to it. The angle side is what goes into the Accusump. The straight side is what goes into the oil galley. So what we have to do is Teflon tape this end and insert it into the valve. And then this side will screw into the galley area. So this line is very thick. It's very not bendable. So we have to be as cautious as we can to make sure that we have it kind of angled the way it should be. So let's Teflon tape this, and then we'll put it into the valve. Just like on the other side where the end of it went into the oil galley, this actually unscrews and you can screw it right into the valve, and then you can screw this. It'll be easier because this kind of doesn't turn the whole hose or the whole line every time you're trying to screw it in. So I think it's easier to just remove this, put it into, and then screw this in. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we are going to Teflon tape that in now, and then we can install the line. Lastly, putting Teflon tape on the oil galley plug adapter for the hose. Okay, so now we just have to install this right here. Alright, that's pretty freaking tight in there, so yeah, so the line is in, valve is in, and the Accusump is in. So the only thing left to do is wiring. You know what I forgot, and please do not forget about this, is the release valve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just angle it out of the way, install it, and then retighten it back. Just enough to be able to get this valve back in its place. Perfect. That's just enough space. So you do also have to Teflon tape this. So let's get some Teflon tape in there, and then we will reinstall this valve. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to reinstall the elbow, and then we're going to work on the wiring. Okay, so just a quick update before I move on to wiring. So, a couple things that I did. I zip tied the AN line to the AC line. That's what's recommended from Ansix, so I went ahead and did that. And I also zip tied, there was like a vacuum line back here that I think I was talking about that was hitting. I think I talked about it earlier in the video. So I zip tied that line, it's hard to see, but to a connector that's down here so that the vacuum line itself isn't touching the actual reservoir. So it's working pretty well right now. As for the wiring on the open close valve, I'm going to move it under these lines, and then I'm most likely going to zip tie it to this wiring harness that's right here so that it doesn't touch this line, because I believe this line is going to be hot due to oil. So I want the wires to go under instead of touching that. So let's move on to wiring. I'll kind of give an explanation as to how I'm going to wire this in, and I'll do it right over here. This is the open close valve that we put on the Accusump, right? It has two wires coming out of it. One of them is power, one of them is ground, right? So the one, if we're looking at the side that the AN is on, the right side is going to be power, the left side is going to be ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these wires that I have here, and I'm going to connect those onto each side. I'm going to put red for power, black for ground. The ground is going to go to a bolt right on the strut tower. So this is going to go to a bolt on a strut tower, the ground, from the open close valve. This power is going to go inside the car, routed through the firewall, and that is going to go right into this switch. So if you look at this switch, the bottom prong is power, the middle prong is load, and the top prong is ground. So the red wire is going to go to the load, and then this power, so this needs power, right? It needs to take power in. So this is going to go to the fuse box, and I'll show you which fuse I route it to, but there's an internal fuse box, and this is going to go to an internal fuse box. The ground is going to go to a bolt that's right on the fuse box also. So this is going to be a black wire, and it's going to go to a bolt that is a ground that is on the fuse box. To attach all of these, I'm going to use these little things, put it in, wire is going to come out of here, go to the fuse box, the ground on the fuse box. This one is going to go at the bottom, it's going to go to the fuse box, to a power that's in the fuse box through a fuse tap. And then the load is going to go to the valve that I have on the Accusump. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to off camera, just going to wire these up. So I'm going to put wires, I'm going to crimp them, and I'm going to put a little heat shrink so that it's all kind of safe and secure. A little wire loom. So I'm going to do all that off camera. You just need, you know, basic tools, a cutter, a stripper, and a crimper tool also. So something to crimp this, which I have on the side. But let me go ahead and do that, and then I will show you once it's ready to be installed in the car. Alright, what's up everybody? So we are on day 2 of this install. Last night I got through most of the wiring. I got through the Accusump actually being installed, but I did run into some issues, and I kind of worked through all last night trying to figure it out. Revisited this morning and figured out that I had some wires kind of flipped. But I did test this morning, and it is working as it should, so that's good. And I'm going to take you guys through the functionality of it, but first I'm going to show you what the wiring looks like so you guys can mirror it if you get the electronic valve. So let me show you the routing of the wires. Alright, so you got the Accusump right here. As you can see, it already is pressurized, so it has some oil accumulated in here. And then I have, as I told you guys yesterday, the valve is facing downward because I'm going to be putting a oil pressure sensor down there. Now I don't 100% know if putting a pressure sensor at a 0-degree angle, like facing upward, is okay. But I think I'm just going to go for it, test it. I looked online, couldn't find any information on it, so I'm going to test it and see if the readings look right. If they do, good. If they don't, then instead of routing it and mounting it here, I'll get an adapter to mount it down where the oil pressure switch that comes on the engine is. I've seen a lot of people route it there too, so we might do that. But the valve, the electronic valve, has two cables. The right one is power, the left one is ground, I believe. Yep, so if you're looking at it from the engine side, so not the Accusump side, the right one is power, the left one is ground. So what I did was I just put some heat shrink and a little wire loom sleeve up to about here. Then I put another heat shrink piece, and then I routed the ground right into the shock tower, or the strut tower, because since the power wire was going through the firewall into the cabin, I thought that the ground would be perfect, kind of sitting right next to it. So I put the ground right here with a little fork clip thing for the wires, and then I routed the power down into the cabin. This is going to be a little bit harder to show because my light is dead, but so as you can see back there, that is the little firewall plug, and you can see the little black cable coming through there. So that little black cable got attached to this red cable, and then we have a ground going right to this little bolt right here on the interior fuse box. I read online that you can use that as a ground, and it's been working so far. And then I have a fuse tap. It was an open spot, and I tested this to see if it would get power at ignition, and it gets power during ignition. So I routed it to this empty spot. There's the 7.5 amp here, a free spot, and then another spot, and then under that is a 10 amp fuse. So you can try to route yours to this one as well. I have the premium GR86, so I think I have a couple more fuses than most people, and there are other options which you can look online to see, but I put my fuse tap right there, and then that goes into this wire loom, which is mounted, which goes all the way to my switch right here. So the switch that comes with it is a 2-prong switch. The one that I got is a 3-prong switch because I wanted something a little nicer and has a little light on it. But on the switch itself, you can see that it shows you got power, load, and ground. So the cable that came through the firewall is routed to this middle one. This is the load, so this is what goes to the valve itself. This power is tapped into the fuse tap that I put in, and then this ground is what goes to the bolt on the fuse box. So this is how I have it routed. Right now I have it here. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try to take this little cover that I have here out, route this switch behind the dash all the way around here. I might have to take this out, and then kind of place it right here, right under this button, and just kind of have it here. Since this is super empty and there's nothing really here, I think this might be the best spot for it. Once I route this, then I'll turn it on and I'll show you guys how the Accusump actually works. Got our hole in here. This should be the same size as the switch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the switch and we're going to mount it into here, and then we will put it in the car. in ignition mode now, right? I have my switch here. Alright, I'm going to turn the switch on. Alright, so if you heard that, it just pre-moved the engine, so it just dropped all the oil into the engine. And I got my switch here in the on position. You can see the light, which means it's on. And I can turn it off, right? So now I'm going to turn the engine on. So right now it's filling up with pressure because the engine itself has pressure, oil pressure, right? So it's filling up this canister. Sorry, it's loud. But it's filling up this canister with oil. Now you can see that the pressure right now is at about 90, but the engine itself, the pressure dropped down. So what it did was it filled up this canister with oil because it was empty, and now it's blocking it so that it stays at the 90 degrees. So basically it's holding in 2 quarts in here without dropping it back to the engine. But you can see that the engine itself dropped in oil pressure because it's not as loud as it was. Now I'm going to flip on the valve to release the oil, and what it's going to do is it's going to try to match the pressure that the engine has itself. So take a look. So you can see the pressure is dropping now to match whatever the pressure is inside the actual engine itself. Basically what it's doing is it's giving back the oil and kind of leveling out to match the pressure of the engine right now. So basically it just returned some of the oil and it's keeping kind of a little bit of it still in here. And that's how the Accusump works. So once this fills up with oil, what you want to do is you want to turn the engine off and turn the Accusump off so that it doesn't push the oil back into the system. And then you want to measure your oil, because now that you have 2 quarts of oil within here, you want to make sure your engine itself doesn't have a low amount of oil, because this is an oil reserve basically, right? So what it does is it overfills the engine in situations where it needs to overfill it because the pressure is too low. And then once the pressure comes back to normal, it just refills itself. So what we're going to do is we are going to, now that the engine is idling, we're going to flip the switch off. We're going to turn off the engine, we're going to measure the oil, and then we're going to fill it up so that the engine oil is full. And then this is just going to stay as a little bit of a reserve. Alright boys, we have finished the install. Tested, added oil. I made sure that the oil, left the cap off, but I made sure the oil level was good. It is mostly full. I left like a tiny bit under full, just because there's 2 quarts in the Accusump itself. So yeah, as always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. As you guys know, like, this Accusump is for preparation for the track days that are coming up. So very excited about that. It's coming real soon. I think there's one track day at Sebring in April, and I'm hoping to be able to make it to that one. Now that I have my Accusump, I should be good. I just have to check kind of brakes, tires, make sure the car is good and ready for the track. But this is a huge accomplishment. Next time, in our next video, we'll be putting in an oil pressure gauge, and then we can actually see the Accusump and actual readings from a pressure gauge showing the Accusump working and not working. That'll be really cool. It's a P3 gauge, and I actually have it. I just don't have time to install it in this video. I'll do that in the next one. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for supporting. I appreciate you all. Peace.